Hi everyone, my name is Dustin Welters. I'm a crop advisor at Pradham Co-op, and here with me today is Amber Moore, the Oregon State University Soil Fertility Specialist. As we progress through harvest here, it's time to start thinking about post-harvest soil fertility management, and one of those items being lime and pH. So we thought it'd be fitting to have Amber join us today and talk about some of the big questions we get around liming our soils and pH. So Amber, we work with a lot of different crops here in the valley, but what's the ideal pH for some of the big crops we grow? You know, grass seed, clovers, things like that.
Great question. So for grass seed, we usually tell people to aim for a pH of 5.5. This includes annual ryegrass, perennial ryegrass, tall fescue, and other grass seed that's produced here in the valley. While for legumes like clovers, we aim for a higher pH, usually a 6.0 minimum for those kinds of legumes. And when it's an establishment year, so that means you're not just top dressing, but able to actually go in and plant the seed that year, we actually recommend shooting for a little bit higher, especially for your perennial grass seed crops like tall fescue and perennial ryegrass. Usually a 5.8 pH as a minimum is ideal for those grass seed crops.
So Amber, what are some of the consequences that we can see in the field when the soil is not at this minimum pH for our crops?
Great question, and that is something I think people don't always understand. And what we're trying to do is to adjust the soil chemistry so that you are optimizing nutrient uptake and you're minimizing nutrient toxicity issues and also nutrient deficiency issues. So the toxicity issues that we see primarily with these crops in the Willamette Valley are manganese toxicity and aluminum toxicity. And these toxicities can be so severe that it completely shuts down production altogether when it's severe enough. The other side of things is the deficiencies. And so with low pH, you can have issues with calcium deficiency, magnesium deficiency, even phosphorus deficiency. And in the case of legumes, you can actually see molybdenum deficiency issues. And so these are things that we're all trying to prevent through pH adjustments with lime.
Yeah, and your note on the legumes there, if I'm not mistaken, molybdenum is very critical for nitrogen fixation.
That's right.
So
yeah,
a key component of that nutrient system there.
Exactly.
Yes. Going into fall, we're often getting soil tests back and liming right ahead of planting, and sometimes some of those soil tests can come back pretty low and a little concerning. And a question we get is, how long does that lime take to react in the soil?
Good question. So with lime, when you apply it, you actually need that lime to react before the pH is neutralized or before it can go up. And so it's not instantaneous. It does take time. In a field environment, it will take anywhere between 3 and 6 months, but we usually like to be a little bit more conservative and say between 6 and 9 months is generally the time period when you'll be fairly certain that pH has gone up and stabilized.
So hypothetically, we've taken our soil sample, we've gotten our pH up to a minimum level, if not higher, where we want to see it. At that point, a crop's growing, we're fertilizing. What factors are driving our pH down? What's acidifying the soil at that point?
There are a variety of factors, but the most critical factor in an agricultural environment would be the application of ammonium-based fertilizers. Urea is included in that, urea sol, ammonium sulfate, all of those will be included. And what happens is the biological process of nitrification, which is the conversion of ammonium to nitrate, releases a tremendous amount of hydrogen ions into the soil. It's those hydrogen ions that brings down the pH and acidifies the soil. And so that by far is your most dramatic and most influential driver of bringing that pH.
And then so certain fertilizers like ammonium sulfate that are higher with ammonium ions are going to likely drive the acidity down quicker.
Yes, ammonium sulfate is known to be one of the stronger acidifiers. Urea is still a strong acidifier, but not as strong as ammonium sulfate. While something like a calcium nitrate isn't going to acidify your soil hardly at all, but there's very little application of that due to its caustic nature and other variables.
Amber, we really appreciate you being here today and talking about something that's so critical to our production system and raising successful crops. Really appreciate you joining us. And if you have any questions about liming, getting lime applied, or soil sampling options that we offer, be sure to call your local Pradham Co-op office or talk to your crop advisor.